All right, next up, we've got the media field. This is where you'd have space for anything to do with images, with videos, with PDFs, with zip folders, literally anything you'd want to attach or upload to another content entry. Within the media field, again, we've got three options. You've got the single asset, which is great for when you just can use one. A common use case could be the featured image of something like a landing page hero. Next, you've got an asset gallery. This is when you want to have multiple files showing up together for something like the logo reel on your homepage, for example. And finally, you've got the external video option. This is for when you want to bring something in from YouTube, Vimeo, or Facebook. So essentially, it just works like a text field where you can sort of reference an external video by its URL. Taking a look at the single asset, this is where, let's just call it image for now. Very similar to text, you can also localize assets. So for example, if you've got a homepage with a picture of the Brandenburg Gate for your German website, you could have this localized as well and show something like the Colosseum if you're building a different version of your homepage for Italy. Within validations, you also have the option to set an asset as required, which again is helpful for when you have a background image that you need to have. You can also have very specific limitations here. So we can have an image that's only within a certain file size or a minimum or a maximum. You can also have restrictions on what extensions can be uploaded. So if we're adding documents, maybe we only want PDFs and docs. We don't want a spreadsheet. If you are uploading a lot of images, you can also restrict what dimensions they would show up in, and similarly for what aspect ratio they would show up in as well for a little bit more consistency. If you're working with a lot of images and SEO is something that's highly important, you can also make sure that all assets uploaded into the media area have to have an alt text or a title. And finally, looking at the presentation, nothing special here. It's just a bit of help text. It could be helpful if the devs just maybe highlight some of the restrictions they've put in place so you're aware of what you can and cannot interact with or upload when working with the asset field in a specific model. The way we work with galleries is relatively the same, nothing special here. All of the sort of validations are also the same, except you have the option to add a specific number of records. So if we're uploading a logo reel on the homepage and we only want to show 6 at a time, you can make sure that you have exactly 6. Anything more or less would not be accepted and you wouldn't be able to publish that entry. The presentation remains the same. Assets and single images are treated relatively similar. It's just a matter of how many assets you can upload within that field. And finally, you've got the external video. Here, let's just call it YouTube and make sure that this is required. And the presentation here would be the same as before. What this would look like on the content editing experience would be very similar to a single string text field, where you simply put the URL of the video that you're looking to deliver or render into the front end. Now, it's kind of important to note that as an editor, we don't have to worry so much about sort of editing, cropping, and compressing and all of that boring stuff when it comes to images. Dato works with a provider called imgix for images and with a provider called mux for videos. And what their APIs do is essentially give your engineers all the possible options to set the focal point, to compress things, to serve a JPEG as maybe a PNG or a WebP on the front end, to set transformations like what quality they show up in, what crop they show up in. Honestly, there's tons of options. I'd recommend checking out the docs if you're sort of keen on understanding what the options are. And finally, within Dato itself, we offer several asset CDN settings. So by default, all new projects come with a few presets. If you're keen on some custom options for things like the format, compressions, enhancements, and so on, all of these can be set on the project level itself. So as an editor, all we need to worry about really is just uploading the asset and making sure that it's the right one. And whatever is then rendered on the front end, a lot of it can be automated. A quick example could be here. My colleague Alessio was cheeky enough to upload a little 140 MB file into the CMS just to test what our new presets would sort of turn that into. And with all of the optimizations, the entire file came up as 29 KB for this specific version. Of course, if we wanted to go ahead and open the image, we could have the full file. but that's something that we very often would not do on a website.